So with that, let's start with our first panelist, Dr. Orloff. So, Dr. Orloff, can we just ask you to run through the basic kind of science of how immunity works for COVID, and I know this is going to be kind of a lecture on the science, but just please about natural immunity versus vaccine-induced immunity, and then how does it work? Could you please take the floor? Thank you.
You said 5 to 6 minutes? All right.
Well, we are friends. We go a long way, so okay. Maybe a little bit longer.
Cut me some slack. All right. So just for people always ask me, how do I pronounce my first name? It's Fiaktist. Okay. Last name's easy, Orloff. I also go by Doc. Okay. Because there's a lot of confusion and misinformation out there, it would be worthwhile to take a moment to first review how our immune system works. There's a lot of information to cover, so strap in. You're all going to medical school. We basically have two components in our immune system, innate and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity refers to our body's built-in protection and first line of defense. For example, our skin, our mucous membranes, our stomach acid, our bacterial flora, cells in our bloodstream that can attack and destroy infections. In addition, our body can do things like induce a fever, which is detrimental to viruses. All of this does not depend on the virus, but on our health status. That is why it's so important to take care of our body, get adequate sleep, proper nutrition, exercise, and avoid smoking. The adaptive immune system is really a backup plan for when the innate immune system has been breached and an infection has been established. It allows our body to target specific pathogens. The basic principle here is when our body recognizes a foreign invader, in this case COVID-19, it targets the virus with T cells and B cells, which then trigger an inflammatory response and antibody production. These antibodies and T cells are specific to the proteins that our immune system is exposed to at the time of infection or inoculation. The immune system then holds the blueprints to those antibodies in its memory for when it comes into contact with the same virus again. Unlike antibodies that disable the virus on contact, T cells recognize when our own cells have been infected by the virus and destroy them, thereby disabling the virus's ability to reproduce and spread, worsening the infection. I should also mention passive immunity. Passive immunity is when we acquire antibodies from another source, such as breastfeeding or monoclonal antibodies. These passive antibodies provide immediate protection, but only for a short period of time. Now that the science lecture is over, let's talk specifics of natural and vaccine-based immunity. Both natural and vaccine immunity produces antibodies and T cells. Unfortunately, antibodies levels tend to decline. This is why boosters are recommended for every 5 to 6 months. T cells, however, continue to provide long-term protection, but are only triggered by re-exposure. Vaccines trigger our immune system without having to be infected. Currently, there are 2 types of COVID-19 vaccines approved by the FDA, but they only target the original alpha strain spike protein. Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA vaccines. mRNA in our cells produce proteins. After vaccination, our cells take up the mRNA and the cellular machinery decodes the mRNA sequence producing the spike protein. Our immune system identifies this as foreign and triggers an inflammatory response. Johnson & Johnson is known as a vector vaccine. COVID-19 spike protein genes have been added to a modified virus known as a vector. After injection, the modified virus infects the cells which then produce the spike protein. COVID-19 variants are showing increasing variability in the spike proteins, decreasing the effectiveness of current vaccines against future variants. Natural immunity occurs as a result of infection with COVID-19. During the infection, our body's inflammatory response targets multiple COVID-19 proteins. This inflammatory response can trigger a cytokine storm that can overwhelm our body and cause severe illness and even death. It is therefore imperative for those with underlying medical conditions such as obesity, diabetes, COPD, cardiovascular disease, immunocompromised immune systems, and our elderly to vaccinate as the primary way to acquire immunity against COVID-19. This is referred to as targeted vaccination of at-risk individuals. Both natural and vaccine immunity reduce the risk of severe illness in future infections. Natural immunity, however, better protects us against future variants. This is due to reduced mutations seen in the nucleocapsid proteins. Let's expand on the risks of vaccine and natural immunity against COVID-19. First, I would like to remind everyone that vaccines save lives. But as with any medical intervention, they are not without potential risks. We still do not know the full extent of long-term complications. In my practice as a family physician, I encourage those who are willing or those with risk factors to get vaccinated. Now on to the risks. In the 5 to 11 year age group, after 8.7 million vaccine doses, 4,000 non-serious events were reported. In addition, 100 serious side effects included high fevers, severe vomiting, 15 cases of myocarditis, 12 seizures, and 2 deaths. In the 12 to 17-year-old group, after 8.9 million doses, 9,000 adverse events similar to the younger population were reported, but also included 397 cases of myocarditis, primarily in boys. Over 520 million doses have been given to adults. The most concerning side effects included blood clots from primarily the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, myocarditis from the mRNA vaccines, again in males less than 30, Guillain-Barré syndrome from the Johnson & Johnson primarily, and anaphylaxis and death. Natural immunity, however, is not without risk. Over 850,000 deaths in the United States are attributed to COVID-19. In addition, many adults develop other complications, including, but not limited to, breathing difficulties, fatigue, brain fog, blood clots, headaches, palpitations, muscle and joint pain, dizziness, diarrhea, tingling, mood changes, loss of smell and taste, changes in menstrual cycles, and post-ICU syndrome. In children, the vast majority of COVID-19 infections are very mild. Some children require hospitalization due to severe respiratory illness. In addition, a small group of children develop multisystem inflammatory syndrome and myocarditis. Death in children is extremely rare and is almost always associated with pre-existing medical risk factors. So, which is better, vaccine or natural immunity? Several studies have looked into this. This week, the CDC published a large study comparing reinfection and hospitalization rates between unvaccinated, vaccinated, naturally immune, and combined. As you can see on the slide behind me, the data clearly shows that natural immunity to be superior to vaccine immunity. Combining both together did not significantly improve risk of severe illness during the Delta wave of 2021. The unvaccinated, unfortunately, and the non-immune suffered severely. Omicron is changing all of that. It is emerging as the dominant variant at this time and is 97% less deadly than its predecessors. With Omicron, we are seeing significant breakthrough infections despite triple and even quadruple vaccinations. Neither vaccine immunity nor natural immunity prevent all transmission or illness. When our goal was to prevent transmission, vaccination and multiple boosters made sense. Now, in light of Omicron, we should focus on reducing severity of illness with early treatments and targeted vaccination of at-risk individuals. Vaccinating people who are at low risk or those with natural immunity no longer makes sense. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Januka.
Thank you, Dr. Orloff. So the take-home message is there is a natural immunity as well as a vaccine-induced immunity, and there's a kind of question whether natural is better than vaccine-induced immunity or not, but either way, they both immunities work. And certainly, if you are high risk, you should get vaccinated, right? Okay. Does anyone have any comment about that? Any one of our panelists? So I don't know if you guys have mic, or can someone get us? I think the other. Yeah. let's see if this, I think one, no, this is working or not. So,
Can anybody hear me? That's better, okay.
Yeah.
One other thing that's worth considering, and we don't really know the answers on this yet, answers will come over time, is the duration of vaccine versus natural immunity. Historically, exposure to a virus has given, if not lifelong, very long-lasting immunity, because the immune system has ways of remembering things that we don't routinely measure. Like just measuring antibody titers doesn't really give us an idea of someone's immunity. Right now, what we're seeing is that vaccine-induced immunity does have a lifespan. That varies. It may be that after the third or fourth shot, it lasts a long time. I think that the data is still coming in on that. So that's just one other point to bring up.
So if I could just comment on duration of immunity with regards to the natural immunity, there is some data that the SARS original coronavirus illness was studied, and 17 years after the people were exposed to SARS and recovered from it, they continued to have effective T cells. So it's a real strong argument towards natural immunity providing long-term benefits and protection.
okay, does anyone else have a brief comment? I just want to I just want to keep this forum going. So does anyone have any comment, a brief comment, please? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next topic, but before